You wake at 3 in the morning, mind racing, and can't fall back asleep. After 45, that broken night isn't just exhausting, it quietly rewires the hormones that control your hunger by morning. The weight that won't move? Today you'll learn the 5 real reasons why this happens. I'm Sophia Hart, and I read the research most people never get to see. Then I translate it into something you can actually use after 45. And these 5 reasons aren't created equal. The third one blindsides women in their 40s. The 5th is a nightly habit you'd never connect to your waistline. Stay with me, because I'll show you exactly which ones are running your nights. But first, let's name what's happening to you. You fall asleep fine. Then, somewhere in the small hours, your eyes snap open. The room is dark, the house is silent, and your brain is suddenly wide awake, replaying tomorrow's to-do list at full volume. You lie there. You watch the ceiling. And by the time sleep drifts back, the alarm is 40 minutes away. You felt this, haven't you? Here's the part that stings. You're doing everything right. You've cut back, you move more, you pass on the second helping, and the scale just sits there. So you start to wonder if it's you, if you lost some discipline you used to have. It isn't you. Your body is doing exactly what biology built it to do at this stage of life. Let me show you why. Sleep isn't one flat block of darkness. It moves in cycles, and the order matters. The first hours of the night are when you sink into deep sleep, the slow, heavy stage where your body runs its most serious repairs. The back half of the night, those early morning hours, is lighter and full of dreaming. So when you wake at 3 or 4, that's not random. That's the thinnest ice of the whole night. The stretch where the smallest nudge tips you straight into consciousness. Now layer on age. Every decade past 30, 2 things shift. That heavy, restorative stage gets shorter, and you surface more often in the dark, lingering awake longer each time. By your mid-40s, the floor of the night has quietly given way, and a 2024 analysis in the journals of Gerontology, tracking more than 160,000 American adults, confirmed it. Healthy sleep takes a sharp, measurable dive as people cross into midlife. Here's where your waistline walks in. That restorative stage you're shedding is the exact window when your body releases most of its growth hormone, the signal that helps keep fat off your midsection and muscle on your frame. Less of that stage means less of that signal, and it gets more direct. In 2022, researchers at the Mayo Clinic ran a tightly controlled experiment published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. They took a dozen healthy adults and trimmed their sleep for 2 weeks. The result? Their bodies didn't simply gain weight, they stored 11% more visceral fat, the deep abdominal kind that wraps around your organs and quietly raises your risk for heart and metabolic disease. And here's the line that should stop you cold. When those same people were allowed to catch up on sleep, the belly fat kept climbing anyway. A lazy weekend in bed does not undo it. So the real question was never whether your broken nights are touching your weight. They are. The question is, what keeps pulling the trigger at 3 in the morning? And there are 5 specific culprits behind it. We start with the first, a chemical your own body floods you with before dawn, whether you're stressed or not. Reason number 1 is a chemical your body makes on purpose. Cortisol, your main stress hormone. And the cruel twist is that this one doesn't wait for stress. It runs on a clock. That clock has a name, your circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour timer that decides when nearly every system in your body switches on and off. The stress hormone is one of its loudest alarms. Levels bottom out around midnight, then climb through the dark hours before sunrise, peaking right as you're meant to open your eyes. In a younger body, that pre-dawn rise is smooth and well-timed, the natural espresso shot that lifts you out of sleep. Here's what changes after 45. The timing slips. The low point stops dropping as far, and the climb starts earlier and hits harder. So instead of easing you awake at 6:30, it's already flooding your system at 3 or 4, right in that shallow stretch of the night where you're barely holding on to sleep. Your eyes are open, your heart is faintly racing, and your brain, lit up by a chemical built to launch you into the day, decides the day starts now. You'd assume that only happens under pressure. It doesn't. This rise fires on its own schedule, stress or no stress, though stress pours fuel on the fire. Now the part that lands on your body. When that hormone stays high, it does two things that work directly against you. First, it turns up your hunger, sharply, and aimed at the richest food in the room, the kind you reach for when you're frayed. Second, it tells your body where to stash the extra energy, around your middle. The padding at your beltline is exactly the tissue most sensitive to this chemical. This isn't a hunch. In 2021, endocrinologists at Erasmus University Medical Center published work in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology. They measured long-term stress hormone levels in the hair of more than 1,600 adults, then followed them for 3 years. The result? The people carrying the highest levels didn't just weigh more at the start. Their waistlines widened the fastest as time went on. Higher stress chemistry today predicted a thicker middle tomorrow. So look at the trap you've been caught in. You wake at 3, wired and hollow at once. You drag through the morning running on empty, which only cranks that same hormone higher the next night. And the whole time, it's quietly nudging your hunger up and routing every spare bit of fuel to the one place you'd never choose. That's reason 1. But this chemical rarely acts alone before dawn. There's a second trigger that often lights the fuse in the first place, and it comes down to what you ate and didn't eat the night before. Think back to dinner. A bowl of pasta, a couple of slices of bread, maybe something sweet after. Eaten a little late, the way most evenings go. That meal sets a trap that springs 4 hours later, in the dark. Here's the chain. A big load of fast-digesting carbs sends your blood sugar, the glucose your bloodstream carries for fuel, up in a steep wave. To clear it, your body pumps out insulin, the hormone that moves that sugar out of your blood and into your cells. But a surge that size tends to overshoot. By the small hours, your fuel level doesn't just settle back to normal, it can swing too low. Your brain treats a low tank as an emergency, so it sounds an alarm. A squirt of adrenaline, your fight or flight chemical, the same one that floods you when a car drifts into your lane. It has exactly one job: wake you up and get you moving. You surface with a jolt, alert, maybe a little damp, strangely hungry at 3 in the morning. Not because anything is wrong, because your body just hit the panic button on an empty tank. Now age tilts the whole system. The cells that once answered that signal quickly start to drag their feet. So the same meal triggers a bigger wave, a steeper overshoot, a harder fall. The swings get wider, and the alarms get louder. And here's where it reshapes your body, even while the scale sits still. In a 2024 trial at Columbia University, published in Diabetes Care, 38 women had their sleep trimmed by just 90 minutes a night, down to about 6 hours, the amount millions of people treat as normal. After 6 weeks, their bodies needed noticeably more of that hormone to handle the very same sugar. Their cells had turned a deaf ear to it. And the most striking part? It happened with no change in their weight at all, and it hit the women past menopause the hardest. The metabolic damage arrives before the pounds do. There's a second blow, and it lands on appetite. Short, broken sleep quiets leptin, the hormone that tells your brain you've had enough, and turns up ghrelin, the one that demands you eat. So you wake from a fractured night with the fullness signal dialed down and the hunger signal cranked up, reaching for exactly the quick carbs that started the cycle the night before. If the pieces are finally clicking, if you're seeing the machinery now instead of blaming yourself, take a second and subscribe. I put one of these out every week, and subscribing means you won't miss the next one. So that's 2 forces pulling you out of sleep before sunrise. And if you caught that the women past menopause took the worst of it, that's no accident. The third reason rewrites the rules of the night for women in particular, and shifts the same ground more slowly under men. For women, the third reason has a name most people only whisper: perimenopause, the long, bumpy runway into menopause that can begin in your early 40s and stretch for a decade. Here's what almost no one explains. 2 hormones that quietly governed your sleep for 30 years begin to vanish. The first is progesterone, your body's own calming agent. It works on the same brain receptors as a mild sedative, easing you down into sleep and helping you stay there. As it fades, that built-in off switch weakens. You don't lose the ability to fall asleep so much as the ability to stay asleep, and the early morning hours, already the most fragile, are where the grip loosens first. The second is estrogen. When it drops, your body's internal thermostat goes haywire, firing off the heat surges you know as hot flashes and night sweats. And these don't politely wait for daylight. A wave of heat at 3 or 4 in the morning yanks you out of sleep, drenched and instantly alert, with no idea why. This is not rare, and it is not in your head. Researchers at Harvard and Brigham and Women's Hospital, publishing in 2022 in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, tracked 45 women through perimenopause for 8 weeks, measuring their hormones against their sleep night after night. The pattern was unmistakable. As those reproductive hormones swung and slid, sleep fractured right alongside them. The broken nights weren't a coincidence of getting older. They were written into the chemistry. Now, the weight. That same estrogen you're losing was doing a second job, telling your body where to keep fat. With it gone, the storage map gets redrawn. Fat that once settled on the hips and thighs starts migrating to the center, building an apple shape almost overnight. A 2026 study in the Journal of Clinical Medicine compared 325 women at different stages of the transition and mapped the change. Muscle quietly declined, and fat consolidated around the core, the single most metabolically dangerous spot it could pick. And men? This is not only a women's story. Testosterone, which is largely produced during sleep itself, begins a slow fade from the mid-30s on. Less of it means lighter, choppier nights, less muscle, and the same drift of fat toward the center. The decline is quieter and the timeline longer, but the destination is identical. So one hormonal shift does double damage. It pries you out of sleep before dawn, and it reroutes the weight to exactly where you don't want it. 2 symptoms you'd never connect, 1 root cause. Stress, a sugar crash, and now a hormone collapse. 3 triggers, all firing from somewhere deep inside you. The 4th isn't chemical at all. It comes from somewhere you'd never think to blame. It's temperature. Not the weather outside, the heat inside your own body, and the air in the room where you sleep. Most people have no idea that sleep depends on cooling. Before you can drop off, your core temperature, the heat deep in your chest and belly, has to fall by roughly 2 degrees. Your body does this on purpose. It opens the vents in your hands and feet, flushing warmth out through the skin so the center can cool. That drop is one of the strongest signals your brain has for staying asleep. Your internal heat keeps sinking through the night, bottoms out in the pre-dawn hours, then begins to climb again as morning nears. 2 things go wrong after 45. The cool down gets weaker. The nightly dip in your core flattens out, so the signal to stay under loses its grip. And as your internal heat starts rising again toward dawn, that upward swing can lift you out of the thin, easily broken sleep of the early hours. You surface around 3 or 4, often too warm, kicking at the covers, with no clue what pulled you up. Then there's the room itself. If your bedroom runs hot, your body simply can't shed the heat it needs to, and sleep frays. This isn't a soft preference. In 2023, researchers at Harvard Medical School and the Marcus Institute for Aging Research published a study in the journal Science of the Total Environment, tracking 50 adults across roughly 11,000 nights in their own homes, pairing wearable trackers with sensors in the bedroom. Sleep was steadiest when the room sat between about 68 and 77 degrees. Let it climb past that, and sleep quality fell by as much as 1/10. Here's the twist that touches your weight, and it runs the other way. A cool bedroom switches on something called brown fat, a rare kind of fat that doesn't store energy but burns it, throwing off heat like a tiny furnace built into your body. A 2024 review in the journal Biomedicines, pooling the controlled human experiments, found that mild, gentle cool, the kind that never makes you shiver, fires up this tissue and nudges your metabolism in a healthier direction. So the same stuffy, overheated room that fractures your sleep is also keeping that little furnace shut off, which points to the single simplest lever you have, a cool bedroom. Toward the lower end of comfortable, cool enough that you'd reach for a light blanket. It deepens your sleep and wakes that calorie-burning tissue at the same time, with nothing to buy and nothing to risk. So that's 4 forces dragging you out of sleep before sunrise, and not one of them is laziness. But there is a 5th. And unlike the others, this one isn't something happening to you. It's something you do, most evenings, and it quietly undoes all of it. The fifth reason is the one you'd least suspect, because you might be using it as a sleep aid. The drink in the evening, the glass of wine to unwind, the nightcap to take the edge off. Here's the cruel irony. Alcohol genuinely does help you fall asleep. It's a sedative, and it pulls you under fast. That's exactly why it fools people. But falling asleep was never your problem. Staying asleep is. And alcohol tears apart the back half of the night with almost surgical precision. As your body clears the alcohol, which takes roughly 4 to 5 hours, it sets off a rebound. The dream-rich stage called REM sleep, the one the drink flattened early on, comes surging back in the second half, shallow and restless. Your pulse ticks up. Your body slips into a kind of low-grade alarm. And because alcohol pulls water out of you, you wake parched and wired right around 3 or 4 in the morning, just as the last of the drink leaves your blood. The nightcap you took to sleep is the reason you're awake. This shows up in the hard data. A 2026 analysis in the journal PLOS Digital Health drew on a full year of wearable readings from thousands of adults, spanning every age group from the 20s into the 70s. Even small amounts of alcohol measurably dented nightly recovery and sleep quality, and dragged down how much people move the next day. And one detail stood out. The earlier in the evening the drink landed, the smaller the hit. Then there's your weight. The instant alcohol enters your system, your body treats it as something to clear right now, and fat burning gets shoved to the back of the line until it's gone. Stack that on top of broken sleep and a slower, less active next day, and you've got a quiet, 3-way drag on your metabolism on the nights you drink. So there they are, all 5. Stress chemistry, a blood sugar crash, the hormone shift, a body that can't cool itself, and the evening drink. 5 separate triggers, 1 shared ending. You, awake before dawn, in a body that holds on to weight no matter what you try. Here's what the research actually points to, and none of it costs a thing. Anchor your wake-up time to the same hour every day, weekends included. It steadies the rhythms that fray first. Eat your heavier meals earlier and ease off a big pile of fast carbs right before bed. Keep the bedroom blanket cool. Move the evening drink earlier or let some nights go without it. And for the hormonal piece, the one part you can't simply out-habit, that's the conversation worth having with a doctor who knows your history. None of this was ever about willpower. The scale didn't freeze because you stopped trying. It froze because 5 quiet forces were working against you in the dark, and no one had ever shown you the wiring. Now you've seen it. So the next time you jolt awake before sunrise, you won't lie there wondering what's wrong with you. You'll know exactly what's happening and exactly what to do about it. If this finally pulled the whole picture into focus, subscribe. There's a new breakdown like this every week. And tell me in the comments, of these 5, which one is yours? I read every single one. I'm Sophia Hart. Sleep well tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.